Soft, slow tone. Imagine gentle breathing, in time with the words, "Relax now." Feel your shoulders ease their weight, let your jaw soften. Let the small muscles around your eyes melt, as if warm lamplight were sinking through them. Each breath arrives quietly, and each breath departs without hurry. There is nothing you need to hold, nothing you need to fix. Only the stillness of this moment, folding around you like velvet dusk. Imagine a cool breeze that brushes against your face, neither cold nor sharp, but tender, the kind that makes candle flames bow gracefully. With each exhale, that breeze carries away the noise of the day bit by bitter till it's just you. Your breath in the hush of evening gathering at the edges of awareness. Now, with that same softness, drift with me into another time. Our story today begins atop a quiet castle wall. Far overhead, the sky turns the color of deep water. Almost imperceptibly, the first stars begin their shy unveiling. One by one, they blink and linger. He smiles because he knows her name, the one he waits for, the one he always hopes to glimpse first. Vesper, the old astronomer, said she is neither the brightest nor the largest, yet she has the gentlest light. A silver hue that trembles faintly, as if she herself hesitates before entering the dark. To Elian, that makes her even more beautiful. Courage isn't loud, he thinks. It's quiet, and it shows itself when no one watches. So each evening he seeks her light, trusting that her arrival will bring dreams. Not only his own, everyone's dreams. The dream of the baker's wife, the dream of the captain below the keep, the dream of the stable boy curled near the hay. Peace travels, he believes, on the wings of that tiny beam that crosses galaxies, just to rest on his upturned face. He does not know if it's magic or memory, but when he sees it, his heart always lightens. A small warmth stirs in his chest, like a hearth quickened. A faint breeze drifts upward from the valley, carrying scents of damp earth and river moss. It moves softly around his armor, whispering through the joints, letting the edges hum faintly, a lullaby of metal meeting air. He closes his eyes. Behind his eyelids, he imagines the fields spread endlessly. He sees faint fireflies at the edge of that Vigentini lanterns carried by unseen hands. He hears the hush of wings as night birds glide over treetops, their paths unseen but perfectly known. Within that soundscape, his thoughts slow until even thinking feels unnecessary. There is no time here, only the gentle now. And then, as if answering his unspoken hope, she appears. Far above the western rim, Vesper awakens a single silver spark, so precise and tender that it feels as though the world holds its breath to watch. Her light brushes the clouds with a sheen like dew upon glass. Elian opens his eyes just in time to see her shimmer. He smiles again. "Peace upon us," he murmurs to no one in particular. No one except perhaps the night, who always listens. The star glows, and with her glow comes stillness deeper than before. The air itself seems to pause in reverence. Below, the stream hushes. Even the torch's flame steadies, its flutter turned to a slow, reverent sway. Now the night breathes in once more, slow, unhurried. And with the exhale, he releases another layer. The chatter, the obligation, the questioning. What remains is only breath and starlight. He stays like that for an age, though minutes may pass or hours. Time's edges blur, softened like frost melting on a window pane. His thoughts wander sometimes to memories of spring morning training with his mentor. The laughter of his sister when they raced horses by the river. But each memory drifts, gentle as smoke, leaving only peace in its wake. Down in the courtyard, a watchman stirs, adjusts his cloak, and wonders idly what holds Sir Elian's gaze so long each evening. But he does not ask. Some silences, he feels, are holy. That sense of holiness expands now through every sound. The listener, you, may feel it too, the delicate blending of breath and world. The hush after dusk that seems to promise safety. If your eyelids grow heavier, that's fine. Let them. The night will keep watch. It may rest. Beneath that gently gleaming sky, the castle feels older than stone itself. The wind's fingers trace along the banners, tugging faintly at their embroidered edges, so the sigils seem to stir from slumber. Each ripple whispers some forgotten promise kept alive only because someone still cares to stand and listen. Sir Elian remains motionless for a long moment, until even the smallest movement of air around him seems part of his breathing, He does not count the minutes. They are no longer necessary. Instead, he lets his perception dissolve into the rhythm of night itself. Far below, a fox slinks along the outer wall, its paws silent on the dew-dark earth. It pauses once, lifting its narrow face upward, as if to watch the bright speck of Vesper through some sixth sense. The night sees the glint of her eyes and feels a kinship to keepers of patience, both content to let the world move at its own pace. He places a hand upon the hilt of his sword knot in readiness, but as one might rest a fingertip upon a familiar melody, the leather of the grip has grown supple through seasons of touch. Underneath that, a faint heartbeat of metal waits, calm as a sleeping companion. "Rest easy," he says softly to the blade, like speaking to an old friend. He catches a glimmer of starlight and returns it, sanguine and quiet. Then he turns back to the heavens. The deep blue has thickened to velvet black now, and the dome above bursts with new stars whose names even the astronomers have long forgotten. He remembers only his own ritual. Watch for Vesper first, and then linger a little longer, grateful for every other spark that joins her vigil. Inside the keep, candles gutter one by one. The smallest flame in the window of the chapel trembles before folding inwards, leaving its wick a tiny curl of smoke. That faint plume drifts up through the rafters and into the open sky, as though eager to join the same night Elian welcomes. Somewhere in the stables, a horse fidgets, snorts softly. The muffled thud of a hoof meets straw, then nothing again. The sound swallowed by sleep's broad curtain. If you listen closely now, listen the way one listens to a whisper within a dream. You can almost hear the warmth hiding in the hush. It has a texture, that warmth, the faint crackle of fire distantly remembered, the imagined weight of a wool cloak around your shoulders. It feels exactly like safety made into sound. The night hums in low tones, vibrations that ask nothing of anyone. Each tone wraps a layer of calm around the mind. Breath slides deeper into the lungs, and every exhale draws the world one shade quieter. The night feels that lull not as drowsiness but as belonging. He tilts his head upward, closes his eyes once more, and lets the star's light project itself onto the inner walls of his mind. Behind his closed lids, he sees streams and silver roads, sees memories of journeys that never troubled the earth. Journeys traveled only by imagination late at night. He sees his mother turning bread on a wooden peel, smells the rising steam of morning loaves. Hears her humming some phrase that never had words. In the stillness of the watch, each of those remembered sounds weaves itself into the blanket of peace surrounding him. The hour has grown deep. Even the moon appears weary from her climb, leaning westward as though to rest on the horizon's shoulder. In that tempered glow, Sir Elian's silhouette no longer looks armored at all. It looks sculpted from shadow and starlight, a quiet figure etched where earth meets sky. Within the courtyard, the great gate sighs, wood contracting in the cool. Iron straps mutter softly. The tower answers with a faint, sympathetic creak. And all these sounds mingle into a single, slow conversation about age, patience, and the comfort of structure. Elian tilts his head, listening. He likes when the castle speaks at night. Its language is one he has learned word by word, the dull click of stone when temperature changes, the soft complaint of rope above the well, the scattered drip of water making its downward pilgrimage through the stair shafts. Together they form a language of endurance. He imagines each sound as a thought the castle is thinking. It's not loud enough to wake the world, but steady enough to be heard by anyone still awake among the living. It comforts him, the idea that the place keeps him company just by existing. The torch behind him is burned low, its wick shrunken yet determined to last. It croons tiny pops and sighs, as if amused by its own stubbornness. Its ember heart glows faintly orange in the brassy dish. The knight looks at that glow and sees time measured not by bells or stars, but by wax melting into rest. A cloud slides over the face of the heavens. For an instant, Vesper winks out. It's not the first time. He never worries. He knows she is still there, shy behind vapor. Even peace sometimes hides before it shines again. He lowers his gaze to the valley. Its fog has thickened. It rolls like breath over the fields, covering fences, swallowing the narrow trail that winds toward the river. Yet the lights of small cottages gleam faintly through its ambers and blues, the colors of family hearths. Each one is a fragment of a larger constellation, anchoring him to the people he guards, though they will never know of his vigil. In the far distance, a dog barks once a single, brisk sound that falls silent almost immediately, as though even that creature remembers where it is in the great quiet of night. Elian smiles at the echo, lets his shoulders ease. There's a faint crick from the joints of his armor, a reminder he is still human, not entirely made of discipline. He stretches one arm out, feeling the muscles expand under the weight of steel, feeling the nighttime air slip into every newly opened space. The sensation draws a low sigh from him. Eva sighs sound warmer at such height. Within the tower, a candle still burns in the library window. He can see its glow through the small slit, bright and constant. He knows whose candle that is. Old Master Dreven, keeper of records, who often forgets sleep when surrounded by parchment. Sometimes Elian imagines the scholar tracing words that might someday record this very night. The vigil of Sir Elian beneath the star vesper, year of the silver frost. Asterisk the thought embarrasses him a little, so he laughs quietly to himself, half breath. That laugh is the loudest sound for several minutes. When it fades, it leaves the air clearer still, as if the breeze itself enjoyed it. He descends one short set of steps along the rampart, metal feet finding rhythm on the worn stone treads. Each step releases a shallow ring, the voice of iron cloaked in discipline. He stops beside a secondary turret where a curved bench of limestone waits, polished by decades of centuries leaning to rest. He sits, the armor settling about him with mild protest, and props his helm on the stone beside him. The night touches his uncovered hair. He feels the coolness slip to his scalp, threading calm through every nerve. It is here he often prays, not the formal prayer spoken before altars, but small spontaneous thank yous thrown upward without words. Tonight, his prayer is simply being still, his eyes half close. The landscape seems to exhale with him. Breath meets breeze, breeze meets starlight. The three combine into one unbroken motion, the rhythm that carries all living things, whether they notice or not. He remembers stories the elders told of a time when stars guided knights through lost lands. How they trusted starlight the way sailors trust the sea's pull, likes that thought. To be guided not by fear of darkness, but by affection for a single spark within it. Vesper reappears between the thinning clouds, fainter now perhaps, yet steadier, as though the brief disappearance gave her courage. Her ray lands directly on Elian's faceplate, resting beside him, drawing a delicate line of silver across it. It looks for one enchanted heartbeat, like the visor is smiling. He laughs again, softer this time. The sound slips into the fog and disappears. Perhaps some wandering dreamer will hear it as a tinkling note inside their own dream. He thinks of dreams then. How people in the castle, the village, the valley, all share them unknowingly each night. Each mind travels alone, yet all through the same dark sea. Maybe, he muses, Vesper is less a point of light than a gathering place for dreams, a harbor lamp calling them home when wanderings grow long. He leans back, eyes tracing the dark map above. There are so many more stars now, each distinct and yet part of the same hush. He names a few to himself, names learned from lore, names that feel like gentle incantations. Anx, Vega, Deneb, Altair, old companions. He does not speak them loudly. He simply forms them in his mind and feels them dissolve into the night's pulse. Below, somewhere down the east wall, a lute begins to play. Soft, hesitant notes drift upward, probably from a guard trying to keep sleep at bay. The melody is slow, circular, kind of wandering cradle song without words or end. It winds between the towers, taking on echoes until the music sounds multiplied. Every surface gently returns its own version of the tune. Stone humming, air whispering, fog singing, a sighing harmony. Elian lets the sound guide his breathing like a subtle tide. Slow inhale, slow exhale. The music doesn't ask to be followed, only noticed. For a while he closes his eyes and simply listens. The steady plucking of strings becomes indistinguishable from his heartbeat. He slips into that timeless state where thinking, hearing, and being all overlap until they are the same thing. Somewhere inside that vast calm, a thought surfaces. When dawn comes, he will still be here, and soon enough, others will take his place upon the wall. Peace, like watch duty, is meant to be shared. He feels no longing for sleep. He feels content that others may sleep because he is here. He whispers as though to the unseen musician below, or perhaps to you listening far away. All is well tonight. The phrase floats outward and downward, carried first by air, then by fog, then by the slow heartbeat of the world itself. Perhaps when it reaches the edges of dreaming minds, it will change shape, becoming the lull of imagined hooves on a forest road, or the soft crash of waves against an unseen shore. However it travels, it carries peace with it, quietly bright as the star he guards. The notes of the lute fade, dissolving naturally into the breath of wind that circles the towers. In their absence, the silence deepens, not empty, but full, like the pause between waves. The night has reached its quietest hour, the small moment before even dreams grow still. Some call it the wolf time, some the hour of spirits. Sir Elian calls it the gentling, the moment when darkness becomes its own kind of light. He sits perfectly at ease now. The ache of long vigil has softened into something nearer to meditation. Inside his chest, a steady warmth grows, born from simple endurance, from the realization that peace can emerge not from conquest but from staying. A faint mist clings to his gloves. It beads along the edges of his armor like dew on leaves. Each bead catches the ghost of a star, and in those miniature reflections, entire galaxies seem to sleep. He lifts one hand, studies that trembling constellation resting upon his gauntlet. A tiny universe balanced on steel. He smiles, not proudly but tenderly. Then quietly, so that only the sky could hear, he speaks. If all this returns to dust someday, then let the dust remember what stillness felt like. The words drift upward and vanish. But the air seems to respond, a chilled sigh that slides over his fingers. A promise, perhaps, that nothing truly vanishes. Down in the courtyard, an unseen bell chimes once, not the high, sharp call of alarm, but a low bronze note struck purely by chance. Maybe the breath of night nudged a clapper, or maybe the bell simply wished to join the music. The tone glides up the tower wall, vibrating softly along the stones, finding every small mosaic crack, and then humming itself into stillness again. That single note feels infinite. Elian closes his eyes. He can sense it resonating in his ribs. With every heartbeat, the echo grows fainter, fainter, until it is indistinguishable from the rhythm of blood itself. The boundary between sound and silence, between body and the towering castle around him, has blurred entirely. He and the fortress are the same act of waiting, one in stone, one in flesh. The mind, when it reaches such calm, begins to drift sideways through its own corridors. It no longer thinks with words, but with texture, image, and breath. That is precisely how Elian comes to remember, without summoning, the first night he ever stood here. He was younger then, younger by several wounds and countless questions. A storm had raged throughout that day. The air smelled of lightning and wet iron. He had been assigned to the wall purely by rotation, a novice bodyguard to emptiness. What could possibly threaten a fortress while rain fell in sheets so thick you could hear the weight of it? He remembered the moment the storm ended, a sudden still pause, as if the world inhaled and forgot to exhale. The clouds had slid open just enough to reveal one trembling star. He hadn't known its name then. He simply watched that spark and felt inexplicably safe. From that night onward, he had searched for the same star each evening until an old astronomer identified it for him, Vesper. Since then, she had never failed him. He thinks of that old scholar now long gone to his own rest and sends gratitude upward, the way smoke rises from incense. The mist thins, the air grows slightly drier, a sign of approaching dawn. Even the faint rumble of the river shifts pitch, its whisper lightened by the changing pressure. A pearl glow appears beyond the eastern ridge, more feeling than sight, gentle, diffused, inevitable. Elian straightens slightly. Aching joints report in tiny murmurs, not complaints but confirmations. He runs a thumb over the edge of his shield, tracing the ornate inlay shaped like wings. Its surface has dulled from years of touch. Each mark is an entry in his unspoken diary. He wonders briefly, if someone will stand here after him in years hence, another soul with different burdens and the same wish for quiet. The thought comforts him. Peace, once found, always leaves footprints. Someone eventually follows them, even unknowingly. Far out in the valley, the fog lifts like a curtain. The black of night fades to indigo, indigo to blue. Vesper's light grows faint now, but not diminished, only blending into the larger brightness. Elian watches her gently disappear into dawn. He never feels sadness at that. She has simply completed her vigil, as he soon will his. He bows his head in thanks. No great ceremony, only the tilt of a man acknowledging a friend before parting ways. A scent of baking bread reaches him from the village. Morning ovens already lit, warmth spreading through unseen streets. He can almost hear the murmur of waking voices, the stretch of a new day in human form, the world beginning again. The torches along the wall flicker their last low flames. Each one dies without protest, leaving curls of smoke that spiral upward in elegant farewells. Even the final torch by Elian's shoulder gives a last flutter before it sighs into darkness. He does not rekindle it. Emerging dawn provides all the light required. And with that, the color of the castle changes, gray stone shifting to pale gold. Frost sparkling along the crenellations dissolves into beads of water and evaporates. From below rises the chatter of awakening stables, the sleep, rough voices of grooms greeting their animals. Life resumes. Still gentle, still slow, like a sleepwalker smiling before full awareness. Elian breathes in once more deeply. He tastes the renewal in the air, cool, sharp, sweet as spring. The notes of the lute fade, dissolving naturally into the breath of wind that circles the towers. In their absence, the silence deepens, not empty, but full, like the pause between waves. The night has reached its quietest hour, the small moment before even dreams grow still. Some call it the wolf time, some the hour of spirits. Sir Elian calls it the gentling, the moment when darkness becomes its own kind of light. He sits perfectly at ease now. The ache of long vigil has softened into something nearer to meditation. Inside his chest, a steady warmth grows, born from simple endurance, from the realization that peace can emerge not from conquest but from staying. A faint mist clings to his gloves. It beads along the edges of his armor like dew on leaves. Each bead catches the ghost of a star, and in those miniature reflections, entire galaxies seem to sleep. He lifts one hand, studies that trembling constellation resting upon his gauntlet. A tiny universe balanced on steel. He smiles, not proudly but tenderly. Then quietly, so that only the sky could hear, he speaks. If all this returns to dust someday, then let the dust remember what stillness felt like. The words drift upward and vanish. But the air seems to respond, a chilled sigh that slides over his fingers. A promise, perhaps, that nothing truly vanishes. Down in the courtyard, an unseen bell chimes once, not the high, sharp call of alarm, but a low bronze note struck purely by chance. Maybe the breath of night nudged a clapper, or maybe the bell simply wished to join the music. The tone glides up the tower wall, vibrating softly along the stones, finding every small mosaic crack, and then humming itself into stillness again. That single note feels infinite. Elian closes his eyes. He can sense it resonating in his ribs. With every heartbeat, the echo grows fainter, fainter, until it is indistinguishable from the rhythm of blood itself. The boundary between sound and silence, between body and the towering castle around him, has blurred entirely. He and the fortress are the same act of waiting, one in stone, one in flesh. The mind, when it reaches such calm, begins to drift sideways through its own corridors. It no longer thinks with words, but with texture, image, and breath. That is precisely how Elian comes to remember, without summoning, the first night he ever stood here. Was younger then, younger by several wounds and countless questions. A storm had raged throughout that day. The air smelled of lightning and wet iron. He had been assigned to the wall purely by rotation, a novice bodyguard to emptiness. What could possibly threaten a fortress while rain fell in sheets so thick you could hear the weight of it?
The first blush of sunlight rests along the outer walls, and the colours that had slept all night begin to wake. Moss gleams emerald again. Banners reveal their deep red hearts. The stones blush faintly as though pleased to feel warmth after so many glacial hours. Sir Elian lifts his face toward that new light. In its rising, he finds confirmation. Everything he waited for has come to pass exactly as it should. He gathers his helm, turning it over in quiet curiosity. During the long vigil, the metal has gathered tiny droplets of dew inside, as though even the air wished to leave an offering. He studies the delicate pattern of water beads. Each one holds a refracted morning sky, an entire little dawn tucked inside the curve of steel. He smiles peace reflected 100-fold in miniature. He replaces the helm beneath his arm, careful not to disturb those fragile stars of water. Below, the gatehouse is stirring. He hears the slow grind of chains, the creak of hinges awakening from their night's slumber, the faint jingle of bridles. The castle's heartbeat quickens, steady but unhurried. From the kitchen gardens beyond the moat arrives the living perfume of herbs crushed underfoot, rosemary, thyme, wild mint. They fill the cool air with a sweetness that begins to dissolve the chill completely. Elian breathes it in and feels every muscle loosen another degree, as if the body itself is learning sunrise. The night lingers on the wall for a long while after the light has fully cleaned the sky. He finds that each new detail he notices, each glint of moisture on stone, each cry of waking swallow adds another layer to his gratitude. He remembers the old monk's teaching, when the world begins again, begin with it. Don't carry yesterday out of habit. Step freshly, as a bee might onto a petal asterisk. So he stands and lets the cool seep from his armor. He feels the weight of the long night slide off him like a heavy cloak. There is an easiness in his spine, a lightness that makes him taller by some private measure. He looks once more toward the valley. Vesper's place in the heavens is now only plain blue air, yet he still senses her presence, folded invisibly into the daylight. Faith does not require visibility. Some truths prefer to glow unseen. From the corner of his eye, he spies movement along the inner stair. A young squire climbs toward him, hair tousled with sleep, armor gleaming with enthusiasm, though not much polish. Elian feels a smile broaden before the boy even reaches the parapet. When the squire arrives, slightly winded, he salutes hurriedly. "Sir, they said your watch was ended. At dawn I came to relieve you." Elian nods, voice calm and low. "You came at exactly the right moment." He gestures over the valley, at the curtain of morning light sweeping slow and sure across the earth. "Take it in before you begin. This is what we guard the world in its breathing." The boy follows his gaze, mouth parted, amazement softening his features. No words form, which is precisely correct. Some lessons sink deeper without speech. Elian places a gentle hand on the squire's shoulder, the metal of his glove cool against the younger man's pauldron. "The night is long," he says, "but every dawn belongs to someone who kept faith while others slept. Remember that, and even dark hours will have light in them." But the boy nods vigorously, as though trying to memorize both the words and the tone. Elian chuckles softly. "Good. Now, keep watch a while, not for threat, but for beauty. It will arrive sooner than you expect." He leaves him there on the wall, framed against flawless daylight, the silhouette of a new guardian at the gate between night and morning.
Descending the stone stair, Elian trails a gloved hand along the wall's interior. The surface still retains the faint chill of night at its base, but with each step downward, the temperature rises, mingling with the stone's stored warmth. It creates a ripple of sensation up his arm, a gentle reminder that every journey through darkness ends in gradual warmth, never suddenly, always gracefully. At the tower's foot, a servant girl crosses his path with a basket of loaves steaming fresh from the ovens. The aroma catches him off guard, molten wheat and nostalgia. He laughs softly. She curtsies, blushes at his shining armor, then hurries along toward the courtyard. He watches the trail of her bread-scented wake, smiling. The world has resumed its usual poetry. He pulls off one gauntlet and flexes bare fingers, marveling at the humanity beneath the metal. Skin warm, pulse steady, no heroism required, just life. Inside the main hall, faint rays of sunlight angle through colored glass. Those shafts of violet and amber pool upon the flagstones like scattered silk. Dust motes rise and dance within them, teeny golden constellations twirling for no audience, except whoever pauses long enough to adore them. Elian stops. He passes through one of the beams and watches how his shadow breaks into bright shards across the floor. He thinks, perhaps this is what grace looks like, one shape split into many lights, all of them moving. An older sentry steps out of the adjoining corridor, offers him a nod and a friendly grin. "Another quiet night, as quiet as truth," Elian replies. "No alarms, then?" "None, unless the stars themselves count as intruders." The two men share a mild laugh that feels more like breathing than amusement, the kind of laugh that releases rather than stirs. In the mess hall, the first porridge of the day bubbles gently over the hearth. Thin mist of steam climbs up the chimney, carrying the perfume of oats and honey. Elian sets his helm on a bench, unlatches his gorget, and sits. For a moment, he just holds his hands near the fire's edge, palms open to the orange glow. The heat kisses his skin, drawing from him a hum of contentment. As the warmth seeps through, his awareness drifts in steady waves, neither fully waking nor entirely dreaming. He realizes the vigil has not ended, has merely changed shape. Peace is no longer a star above him. It is the breath circling in and out. The faint crackle of oak logs, the murmur of companions stirring to life. He exhales a final time as a watchman, inhales now as a man at rest. Everything continues. Nothing is rushed. Outside, sunlight floods the courtyard with gold. Children of the servants chase each other across cobblestones, laughter ringing high. The knight's horses snort at the light, stamping dew from hooves. Above it all, the tower stands the place where night kept its promise. If one looks closely from afar, one might think the stones hold a faint shimmer still, as though remembering the patient vigil of steel and breath that stood upon them beneath the star. Memory lives even in matter. Peace leaves fingerprints everywhere it touches. And so, the story closes where morning opens. The night's watch becomes the world's gentle rhythm again. Within your own listening silence, you can feel that same rhythm tucking you back toward rest, even though the tale has found its dawn. Let your breathing follow the fading of the last starlight, slowly, quietly, until all that remains is ease. The castle keeps watch now. The sunrise is soft, the future kind, and all is well. The faint crackle of oak logs, the murmur of companions stirring to life. He exhales a final time as a watchman, inhales now as a man at rest. Everything continues. Nothing is rushed. Outside, sunlight floods the courtyard with gold. Children of the servants chase each other across cobblestones, laughter ringing high. The knight's horses snort at the light, stamping dew from hooves. Above it all, the tower stands the place where night kept its promise. If one looks closely from afar, one might think the stones hold a faint shimmer still, as though remembering the patient vigil of steel and breath that stood upon them beneath the star. Memory lives even in matter. Peace leaves fingerprints everywhere it touches. And so, the story closes where morning opens. The night's watch becomes the world's gentle rhythm again. Within your own listening silence, you can feel that same rhythm tucking you back toward rest, even though the tale has found its dawn. Let your breathing follow the fading of the last starlight, slowly, quietly, until all that remains is ease. The castle keeps watch now. The sunrise is soft, the future kind, and all is well. The castle settles into daylight as smoothly as silk spreading across a polished table. Nothing abrupt occurs. Every sound and motion unfurls in proper rhythm. The opening of shutters, the murmured exchange of greetings, the steady percussion of buckets meeting well water. Sir Elian watches quietly from the arch of a doorway, still half inside the hush that had shaped his night. He senses how each hour carries its own music, the chorus of dawn ceding to the softer flutes of morning. He removes the final piece of armor, the breastplate. It releases him with a single, satisfied sigh, almost affectionate. The absence of its weight is a revelation. He sets it gently on a wooden stand. The metal gleams faintly, reflecting the golden rectangle of light falling through the doorway. For the first time in many hours, his chest moves freely, ribs lifting in easy confidence. Breathing without armor feels like remembering a song you used to know by heart. He closes his eyes, exhales once, and in that exhalation, places all the long night behind him like footprints closing under new snow. One of the younger kitchen boys passes, balancing a tray laden with mugs. He stumbles briefly, but steadies. Elian reaches out instinctively, saving a sliding cup before it topples. The boy flashes a quick, sheepish grin. "Thank you, sir. Tea for the scholars." "Carry it proudly," Elian says, offering the rescued mug back. Within it, dark liquid ripples, spreading tiny circles that mirror the surface of a calm pond. Even accidents now seem graceful. He follows the boy's path with his eyes, until the clatter of distant conversation folds around the corridor turn, then fades. Every sound softens into harmony, layered like pages in a hymn. He decides to walk the outer court before rest, letting his body reacquaint itself with simple motion. The paving stones press reassuring solidity beneath his boots. A pair of pigeons stir on the parapet, feathers glimmering gray-violet where sunlight brushes them. Their cooing seems to echo his mood content and unhurried.